Hey everyone, welcome to This Explainer. So, have you taken a good look around lately? Whether it's the apps on your smartphone, the cars sitting in traffic, or even those brand new apartment buildings popping up downtown, you might have noticed a pretty specific trend. Everything is just starting to feel incredibly uniform. We are literally living in an increasingly beige, gray, and minimalist world. Today, we're going to figure out exactly why our colorful reality basically got paved over. Let's jump right into this jarring contrast. Think back to the McDonald's of the 1990s. We are talking bright red roofs, that iconic chunky mansard architecture, vibrant yellow arches, and those playful, maybe slightly eccentric fiberglass mascots hanging out on the benches. It was loud, right? Now, fast forward to the 2020s version. What do we get? Dark gray, rectangular glass boxes with muted wood paneling and super clean lines. The vibrant, chaotic, totally distinct places from our past have been steadily replaced by these sterile, almost airport lounge-style environments. Which brings us to a really massive question. Why exactly did our world lose its personality? Now, it's super easy to just brush this off as a passing design trend, just a fleeting moment of minimalism. But I really want to hook you right here. This is absolutely not an accident. This shift is a highly calculated, multi-billion-dollar corporate strategy that has basically swept across the globe over the last decade. And today, we are going to unravel the how and the why behind it all. Let's get right into Section 1, the graying of our world and this minimalist reality. Okay, to really understand this, we need to give this corporate strategy its official name. It's called blanding. Yep, not branding, blanding. This is a calculated move where massive companies, we're talking everyone from giant tech firms to luxury fashion houses, are actually paying millions and millions of dollars to design agencies to systematically strip away their distinct personality. Why? All in the name of hyper-efficiency. The crazy, ironic goal here is to look almost completely identical to their biggest competitors. It's an active choice to blend in rather than stand out. Moving on to Section 2, when brands had personality, otherwise known as the era of maximalism. To really grasp the stakes of this whole design mystery, we've got to rewind the clock a bit. Let's go back to the late 1990s and early 2000s and remember the era of visual maximalism. 30 years ago, companies genuinely competed by being as eccentric and memorable as humanly possible. Cars didn't just look like identical aerodynamic jelly beans, they had wildly unique silhouettes, pop-up headlights, and vibrant paint colors like bright purples and yellows. Tech was fun, too. The Nintendo 64 or those iconic translucent Game Boys, they proudly showed off their internal wiring. And over in the high-end space, luxury brands like Yves Saint Laurent, Burberry, and Balenciaga lean super heavily into complex, heritage-driven typography to signal their craftsmanship and their unique regional roots. Basically, products proudly wore their individuality on their sleeves. So, on to Section 3, why everything flattened out. Let's meet our three main culprits. If maximalism was so fun and distinct, what forced all that vibrant aesthetic to just flatten into absolute nothingness? Well, suspect number one is the physical constraint of our screens. It's the shrinking UI and UX real estate. Walk through these steps with me real quick. Think about step one. Brands used to design for 50-foot highway billboards and massive television screens. You had room for rich texture, deep shadows, and huge detailed fonts. But then, step two hits. Engagement moved to 5-inch smartphone screens. And finally, step three, everything got crammed down into a 1-inch mobile app icon on your home screen. Those intricate 3D gradients, the complex crests, and beautiful thin serif fonts, they just became totally distorted and unreadable on tiny digital displays. To survive the smartphone era, vectors literally had to physically flatten out just to stay legible. But it definitely wasn't just the technology. Culprit number two is risk aversion in global expansion. As companies hyper-globalized, trying to sell the exact same product in New York, Tokyo, and Dubai all at the exact same time, bold cultural quirks suddenly became immense financial liabilities. Think about it. A specific design choice that feels super clever in one culture might feel totally alienating or even confusing to an entirely different demographic halfway across the world. So what's the ultimate solution to global risk? You create a frictionless global aesthetic. Brands universally started adopting neutral color palettes, simple geometric sans serif fonts, and stripped-down minimalist geometry. And the reason why is pretty simple. These neutral elements safely translate across every language and culture without offending, confusing, or really challenging anyone. It is literally the visual equivalent of elevator music. It's designed to be universally tolerable, even if it's completely uninspiring. That brings us to culprit number 3, efficiency and value.
specifically focusing on manufacturing economics.
This final motive is driven purely by hard economics. The data from iSeeCars industry analytics is actually wild when you look at automotive color distribution over the last 2 decades. There is a massive gray chunk. Grayscale colors, meaning white, black, gray, and silver, now account for a staggering 78% of all cars on the road. Vibrant colors make up only 22%. To put that into perspective, almost 4 out of every 5 cars you pass are totally neutral. The crucial point here is that these tones dominate our roads not because people are just passionately in love with the color gray, but because they cost significantly less for corporations to manufacture at a massive scale. Plus, for the consumer, a neutral car usually commands a much higher resale value in the secondary market. It's this closed loop of economic efficiency that is literally erasing color from our daily commutes. Moving into Section 4, the global airspace phenomenon and the rise of standardized aesthetics. To truly see the psychological aftermath of this hyper-efficiency in our built environments, we can look at a brilliant term coined by tech writer and author Chayka. He says, airspace describes how algorithmic platforms created a friction-free, standardized aesthetic across global cities. Chayka's work highlights how algorithms on platforms like Instagram and Pinterest entirely flattened our physical world. Designers everywhere are basically feeding on the exact same algorithmically curated mood boards. And the result? Physical spaces that look like they were generated by the exact same computer program. You can absolutely see this algorithm at work in the global Airbnb aesthetic. You know the exact vibe I'm talking about. You have the exposed brick walls, the dangling Edison bulbs, the light wood counters, and of course, you've got to have the mandatory Monstera plant sitting in the corner. I want you to think about that trendy, artisanal coffee shop just down the street from you right now. Well, realize that a cafe in Seoul, South Korea currently looks absolutely identical to a boutique hotel in Tokyo, Paris, London, or New York. The algorithm has perfectly standardized global interior design. But here is exactly where we hit a wall with all of this. On one side of the shift, we have heritage and crafted design. This means unique typography, human textures, and a distinct emotional connection. On the other side is the reality of blanding, commoditized and clinical design. We see those identical clean fonts, predictable geometry, and ultimately a sense of emotional hollowness. When our public spaces, our vehicles, and our digital tools lack texture and unpredictability, we start to experience deep visual exhaustion. Our environment feels totally sterile, and as a result, massive brands actually start losing our consumer loyalty because their identities just no longer feel distinctly human. Finally, Section 5, the return of quirky and the pushback on perfection. Okay, so the hopeful twist in our detective story is that consumers are finally actively fighting back. We are seeing a massive pushback against this sterile perfection. Independent designers are completely reviving those chaotic, colorful Y2K aesthetics. We're also seeing a huge return to retro hand-drawn logos that actually have some real grit and texture to them. People are embracing bold, vibrant color palettes again and celebrating custom physical crafts where the intentional flaws are literally the whole point. Consumers are actively rejecting those clinical gray boxes of the last decade because, honestly, they've realized that true human style actually lies in the imperfections, the quirks, and the distinct local identities that corporate minimalism tried so desperately to erase. So I want to leave you with this bold, provocative thought today. When every single brand tries to appeal to everyone by looking like nothing, the most radical thing you can be is distinct. Take that thought with you. I really encourage you to look at your everyday environment, your apps, your neighborhood, your favorite brands with a completely newfound critical eye. Where do you see blanding happening? And much more importantly, where do you see the rebellion of distinct personality fighting its way back? Thank you so much for exploring this fascinating topic with me in today's Explainer. Until next time, stay curious and stay distinct.